Hello and welcome. I'm Karen McNenny, author, mediator, co-parent specialist, and divorce consultant. And this is The Good Divorce Show, where we don't just talk about how to get divorced, but how to be divorced. Whether you're considering divorce, in the middle of it, or navigating life after, you're in the right place. And it takes courage to be here. This show exists to bring divorce out of the shadows of shame and into the light of education, and to challenge the idea that divorce must be destructive or adversarial. You're going to hear from professionals and real families sharing honest stories of resilience and repair, proof that divorce can be done differently. Divorce is not a weapon, it's a tool. And when used well, it can be a tool for transformation. Thanks for being here. Let's dive in. Well, hi there. Thanks for spending some time with me. I wanted to talk about grief and the grief of divorce, which we wildly underestimate, and most of us don't understand unless we've been through it. And this might be an episode that you actually need to share with someone who's supporting you through your divorce journey. It's interesting. I think about if my husband had actually died, which I've never wished and I don't wish. But if he had died, my community of friends and family and neighbors, coworkers, right? Like everyone that I would come in contact with, they would know they would know how to support me, even if it was awkward. We're not great with any kind of death, frankly, in American culture. But I'm guessing that if I had lost a spouse, there would have been a meal train organized on my behalf. There would have been a casserole in my refrigerator every other day, which sounds awesome no matter the circumstances. Please feel free to send food. There also would have been a probably consistent effort to reach out to me, to check in, see how I'm doing. I most likely would have had an invitation to every holiday for the first year, making sure that I wasn't left alone. And yet, when we go through the death of a marriage, we are often left alone, maybe even shamed and judged, which tends to push us deeper into the cave of isolation during a time when what we really need is support. So let's consider for a moment what the death experience, the grief experience of divorce actually is. And it's, yes, the death of a marriage, significant. It's also the death of my identity as a wife and partner. It's the death of my family as I knew it. It's the death of sometimes our community, friends, or shared spaces that we had with our spouse. So much loss, so much grief. And then there might also be, the death and ending of where we lived. We might be giving up the family home, or we might be the one who's moving out of the family home. So much turbulence and change and heartache and distraction. And yet, we don't formally support these families in our society. In fact, as I've mentioned before, the bulk of my career has been as a business consultant, working with leadership development, employee engagement, workplace culture, basically helping work not suck. And one of the things that helps work not suck are certain policies and procedures, most often offered through our human resource and our benefit packages. One of those being the Family Medical Leave Act, which offers the opportunity for an employee who's going through a significant life change, something difficult that is pulling their attention, time, and resources so that they can leave their job and know that their job is held for them during the time that they're navigating that significant, difficult time. Now, wouldn't it seem practical um, to include divorce in the Family Medical Leave Act, which it is not covered at this point, part of my advocacy work around family-centered divorce reform is actually to push the envelope of insurance companies that are offering benefit packages for human resource departments inside organizations, for managers and leaders to think about their employees who are going through this kind of change. And even if it's not formal within the workplace, I certainly hope that we have people in a leadership position who are supporting employees going through divorce. Because honestly, as I can attest myself, we're kind of worthless for a period of time. Often there's more meetings that need to happen with lawyers, with my clients, for meeting with financial people, real estate folks, divorce coaches and consultants. And there's some days where the grief just hits you out of the blue. You don't see it coming. Sometimes I think of it like being a ping pong inside a shoebox that kind of gets knocked around, but you never know when it's going to get bumped or what the result is going to be. And it's disorienting. For those of you who might be in the midst of the dark days, and I'll remind you, it does get better. It really does. And it really comes over time. And even if you're relieved, that the pain and the suffering of the divorce is finally coming to an end, I refer to this grief relief cocktail. You can feel the relief and grief at the same time. The heart has this wild capacity to experience conflicting emotions simultaneously. And divorce is certainly one of those times in our life where that's happening. A couple of recommendations I have for you. One, clients will come to me and they're like, Karen, I don't know how I'm going to get through it. It's just so hard. I cry all the time. My kids walk out the door. The silence of the house is deafening. Yeah, I get it. I remember it. In those early days when the kids started to live across two homes and I suddenly am a single woman, I would just eat like cheese and crackers standing at the kitchen counter. It was chips and salsa all night long. It was really hard to feed myself, thus the meal train. And cooking for one, after cooking for a family, it's just so black and white. And those early days of transition, it's a light switch. Even the grocery shopping, I've got lots of food in the house. The kids are here. The friends are coming over. The neighbors were hosting, and then they're gone. And then I just have a bunch of food in the fridge that's going bad because I'm not going to prepare it, which is when we start to learn how to shop strategically as a divorced household, right? When I only have a house full of beautiful humans every other week or every 4 days. So you learn how to shop appropriately and not to overshop. But on those days that are the transition days, and the kids are moving and going to their other home, I recommend that you clearly identify a plan for yourself. They leave at 3:00. What are you doing at 3:15? Probably your best bet in those early days is that you're leaving the house so that the absence of your children doesn't engulf you. And it's not, 3:15 panic. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? It's the night before or every standing transition day. If it's a Sunday at 3:00, you have a dog walk with a friend. You go to your pottery class. You go shoot hoops with the guys. You meet up with your knitting club, whatever it might be. Honestly, it is going to serve you well to have something to go to immediately. And often something social, but maybe it's solo. Maybe it is a solo dog walk. Maybe it's solo time at the library, but it is an event that will pull you away from the reality of the grief that's sitting right at your doorstep. Another thing to think about as I hear my own clients and friends talk about how they're not sure they'll ever get through it. And there truly is no elixir of healing greater than the gift of time. It is over time and distance that things improve. And we cannot push the river. We cannot push the river. We just have to follow it. Another way to think about it, you might know the book Going on a Bear Hunt. It's a children's story, and they head off, and they're going on a bear hunt, and oh no, they've come across a swamp. Can't go over it, can't go around it, can't go under it, have to go through it. And they carry on going on a bear hunt, and then they come across, oh, it's a giant mud puddle. Can't go over it, can't go under it, can't go around it, have to go through it. And the only way to get through grief is to go through the grief. And to remember, it's not linear. You may be familiar with the work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who gave us the 5 stages of grief. And as a reminder, we know those as, it starts as denial. This isn't happening. And then maybe the anger. What the hell? This is happening. And then the bargaining. Wait. Maybe we can work it out. Maybe it doesn't have to go this way. And then the reality starts to set in, and that can be where the depression and the grief comes. And eventually we arrive at a place of acceptance. Now, keep in mind, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance does not happen in a linear line. You don't get to check them off the list. They will pop up and surprise you, and you might cycle between denial and anger, bargain, anger. I accept this. Back to denial. No, this isn't happening. You can't predict it. And I wanted to mention, I think I have this right. There was a mentor, maybe a co-author, a co-researcher that worked closely alongside Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And after her passing, he continued the work, and he really felt like there was a 6th stage that hadn't been addressed, and approached her family and got permission to speak about it and include it in this journey. And the last stage is, in their opinion, it's meaning. It's how do we make meaning of this hard, difficult thing that has happened to us. It took me about a decade to get to that place. And now I feel like it is my life's work. The very difficult decision to divorce, navigating the journey of it, the big adjustment, which takes sometimes 3 to 5 years to really feel like yourself again, or your renewed self. And it always takes longer than we think. But now, out of the ashes, here I come as a phoenix of transformation. Another way to think about it is a compost pile. And when we put things in the compost pile, we are still honoring that it happened, but we're not holding on to them in the pantry anymore, right? Where we can keep looking at them and moving through those stages of anger and grief and resentments. And something about taking it out of the pantry and dumping it into the compost pile is part of that acceptance. And then turning it over, letting it decompose, letting the alchemy of life literally change that event as it looks today. And then it becomes fertilizer for your new garden. All of those things that happened to me, all of that grief and sadness and dark days, which I don't have anymore around the divorce. Well, while I was writing the book, I was reliving some of those moments, but from a distance, no longer bleeding. But when we think about fertilizing the new garden, then we're making meaning. And my meaning, my purpose, my calling is to disrupt the divorce industrial complex, to give people like you a place to learn and to have support, learn how to have a good divorce, and to be supported in that process, not shamed and isolated. There's another interesting element of grief that I learned about through my own journey, often referred to as ambiguous grief. Now, ambiguous grief, let's give some examples. So, envision you had a loved one who was lost at sea or lost in the backcountry after a hiking incident, and the body was never found. They're gone, but the body wasn't retrieved. There's not closure. There's always this little like they're here but not here, and you know they're gone, but without that punctuation mark, that would fall under the umbrella of ambiguous grief. If you have had a loved one with dementia or Alzheimer's, absolute ambiguous grief. Um, I have a dear friend whose father is no longer there. Now their body is there. They go see them on a regular basis. They visit them at the memory care center. It's their dad, but the person is not there. So saying goodbye to the person and the relationship already happens long before the body dies. That's ambiguous grief, as is divorce. Gone but not gone. I'm having all of this grief about my husband is gone, my family is gone, the sadness of not only what we've lost, but what will never be. And yet, there he is all the time. In my inbox, on my text messages, in the phone, at the soccer field. Oh, we weren't a soccer family, actually. At the dance concert, at the ski hill. Gone, but not gone. And in those early days, that can be really confusing when you're trying, I recently broke up with a post-divorce relationship and we went cold turkey, like no contact. There has to be a time where something ends and something else begins, where we're not still in contact, kind of poking at that wound. But when it's your co-parent, you don't really have that luxury. You still have to be in contact. Kids still have to get to school. They have to be picked up. We have to make sure they have the things that they need, that they've made it to their doctor's appointment, whatever it might be. That person is gone but not gone. So one way to approach this or to think about it, let's consider an open wound. Red, raw, angry, maybe still bleeding a bit. That's not the gashing wound, right? We're kind of beginning to repair a little bit, and maybe even some of it's starting to scab over. And what do? We go on Facebook and do some pain shopping. We talk to our friends who saw him at the pickleball court. We chat about how she brought someone. You see where I'm going? This downward cycle I refer to as pain shopping. Don't do it. It's not going to do you any favors. That is like picking the scab of that wound that is desperately trying to heal over. And we just keep pick in a variety of different ways. And every time we pick at it, it's kind of starting over again. That whole grief cycle. And sometimes we pick at it so we can feel the pain, or we want to re-engage with that partner if something doesn't feel finished, and being at least in an angry conversation is better than no conversation at all. I don't recommend it. Trust me, I did it. I'm telling you everything I need to hear. There were plenty of times I was pain shopping, driving by their house, stalking them on social media, listening for gossip about their new life. All these things, you don't need it. What we need is for that wound to scar over. I've got scars. I've got a number of scars. Many of us do. And what we know about a scar is that it represents a wound that we experienced, but we no longer feel it. And literally, some scars, if you like poke them with a needle, there aren't any nerve endings there anymore. You don't feel in that place. And that might seem impossible for where you're at right now, but you'll get there. And if you're more intentional that that's the goal, stop picking, right? Let the journey of grief move through organically throughout your life and let it scar over. A lot of times this is referred to as emotional indifference. It was some advice that we got from our couples counselor once we decided to divorce. And one of the things she said was, your task now is to become indifferent towards one another. And honestly, in that moment, I don't think I even knew what that meant. And I just was like, I'm never going to feel about this person. I'm never going to care about this person. That's impossible. I fell in love with this person. I chose to marry them. We have children together. They're going to be in my life forever. How am I ever not going to feel for or about this person? But what I've come to understand about indifference is that what it really means, at least for me in the divorce world, and maybe this will help you with your former spouse, is that I don't get rattled by their behavior. I don't hit the bathroom floor for a day because of something I heard about their new life. It is more like someone in the grocery store who cuts you off with their shopping cart and gets in line before you at the checkout. Some of us might get really rattled about that, might even have a little squabble. But most of us will be like, whatever, that's them, I'm fine. Oh, whatever. And it's such a gift when you get to that place about your former spouse, when you can just let them be who they are. It's who they've always shown you they are. And if we begin to think that they're going to be different than the person we were married to, well, then you're just telling yourself stories. That's not how it works. We are who we are. And those same triggers, as long as you leave that wound open and allow it to poke you, it's going to rattle you. And then eventually it just doesn't. Because the wound of the divorce has scarred over. Because we gave ourselves the permission to grieve fully, even while we're experiencing maybe some relief. I was just in conversation with a client, checking in. I meet with clients together, and on the alternating weeks, I meet with folks individually where they can do some of this individual work about grief or anger. And I asked her, how you doing? How's your heart? And this was about 3 months into our process together. And she said, and she was not the one who opted for this divorce. It was really hard for her, and she spent quite a bit of time in denial. Even though it wasn't a vibrant, thriving marriage, they really had become roommates. Divorce still wasn't something she would have chosen for herself. She was fine, kind of status quo. Kids were leaving for college. But husband decided, nope, I want more for my life. In this next chapter, last chapter, they're both approaching their 60s. And her response to me, and she almost felt shy about it, she said, I think I'm kind of excited. I'm excited to see what's on the other side. I'm kind of looking forward to this new space on my own and not living in the status quo, not having Eeyore in my life every day, which is how she referred to her husband. And trust me, Eeyore is going to turn into Tigger from Winnie the Pooh reference, if you're not with me, because they're both going to bounce back with new energy. And I believe that you will also bounce back into a new version of yourself as you take the pain of this time and you put it in the compost pile, and it's going to get stinky and gooey and icky and unpleasant. And then eventually it will be this beautiful fertilizer for your new life as you grow into the next best version of yourself. That's what you deserve, and it's what your children deserve. And remember, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.